Wow.
Shut up about the YouTube channel.
You took care of it more when you were employed.
Yeah, go figure.
You had to avoid work somehow.
I guess.
Welcome to AT Banter, the podcast where we discuss anything and everything regarding the world of assistive technology. With our hosts, Steve Barkley, Rob Minot, and Ryan Fleury. Now, let's banter.
Hey, and welcome to yet another episode of AT Banter. I am, of course, Rob Minot, and today I am joined, as per usual, by Ryan Fleury.
Hello.
And Steve Barkley.
G'day, y'all.
And hey, it's episode 51.
51.
Yeah, we made it past the big F50.
The big.
I was going to say the big FU, but that's a different show.
That's
Yeah,
the After Hours podcast.
That's right. AT Banter After Dark.
that's right. Which we still need to work on. We still
Yeah.
need to develop that.
That's right.
How was your week?
Ducky.
Pretty quiet.
Really? I've
Yeah.
had a busy week.
Have you?
Yeah, been designing business cards and mugs
true.
and T-shirts.
Shh.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. I nothing. I wasn't doing anything. I was just
Nothing at all.
watching Netflix. Actually, I finished watching The Expanse season 2.
Oh, did you? I got to get back to that.
You should. It's
I
all aired.
stopped.
It's on Cody.
Really?
Can't talk about it.
Okay, we won't talk about Cody.
But yeah, and you've been watching American Gods.
I've seen the first 2 episodes of American Gods. Yes.
And what's your take?
It is beautiful. The casting is phenomenal. The effects, I think, are fantastic. There was one goddess in particular that I was wondering how they were going to handle her.
I know the scene you're talking about.
And I thought they did a terrific job, like a really, really good job of that scene. I couldn't imagine how they could pull it off, and yet they did.
Nice.
So, yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Well, cool. Yeah, no, I'll have to check it out. I haven't watched any yet because I generally like to wait till the whole season is aired, and then I can just, bang
Binge
them
watch
off
it.
one after another. But
Yeah.
excellent. All right. Well, we should get to our show because we actually have a very busy show today. We had some news items drop this morning that we need to address as well.
Yeah.
Before we jump into talking with Victor Tsaran, who is with Google Accessibility.
Woohoo.
So let's get right to it and let's talk about
The bombshell.
the big bombshell, which is
Windowise is dead.
Windowise, which is for those who may not be aware of it, was a very popular screen reader for the blind. It's been around for 15, 20 years? It's been around for quite a while, right?
Oh, a long time, yeah. I can't even remember when it first started up.
Okay, but step me through this. So Windowise used to be owned by who?
GW Micro.
GW Micro. Okay, and then they were bought by...
They merged with VFO.
No, they merged with AI Squared. The makers
Oh,
of
right.
ZoomText.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
And then VFO bought AI
Right.
Squared,
Right.
which brought JAWS, Windowise, ZoomText, and Magic all under the same roof.
Right.
And they were all fierce competitors with one another. And some might actually say almost to a religious fervor.
Really?
Yeah. People who liked Windowise loved Windowise. People who liked JAWS loved JAWS. And if you put the two of them in a room, you could you could set up little fight clubs.
Wow.
Yeah, because they would advocate for their screen reader of choice. But I think we actually addressed it in a earlier podcast. We predicted that they weren't going to run with 2 screen readers and 2 large print programs, and sooner or later they were going to start to harmonize their product lines.
Right.
And here they go. So the first off the block is Windowise is being phased out, and JAWS is going to be the screen reader from VFO moving forward.
And I think we saw the first inklings of this happening when ZoomText 11 came out and there was support built in for JAWS. There was a lot more keyboard commands that were usable.
Yeah,
and
compatible.
ZoomText compatible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that was the first sign.
Yeah, so the big question that comes out of this is what happens for Windows users, for starters, and it looks like they've developed a pretty good upgrade path for Windows users. The other question, I guess, which hasn't been addressed so far, at least not that I've seen, is what happens to ZoomText Fusion users.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wonder if there might be a new Fusion right around the corner that melds JAWS with ZoomText instead of Windows with ZoomText.
Now, sir, refresh my memory. So Fusion was a mixture of ZoomText and Windows, right?
Yeah. So it was a large print program with a complete keyboard controllable screen reader built in.
So let's say you're starting out with, still some functional vision, but it's going to deteriorate over time. You can make that transition from using a magnification program to a full-on screen reader without having to buy another product when you reach that point.
Well, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I think that there's probably going to be a new version of Fusion just around the corner that's going to incorporate JAWS.
Yeah, that'd be my guess too.
Mm-hmm.
But we shall see.
So, did this surprise you guys at all?
It surprised me how quickly it came about. I thought they might run a little longer in parallel, but I guess with the changes that have come out to Windows of late, the Creators Edition has just come out.
Right.
They probably have to do some updating to Windows to make all of that work, and who knows what else is coming down the pipe from Microsoft that might change the landscape too. So it just doesn't make sense to have two parallel development programs for the same type of product.
Now, you were saying, Ryan, that the price point between Windows and JAWS wasn't that great, right?
Yeah, I think in Canada, Windows was $900 and JAWS was like $1,100 if you wanted the home version.
Yeah, that's before our dollar sank through the floor.
But still, only a difference of maybe a couple $100. So it's not like they're removing a sort of a mid-range screen reader from the market.
No,
they're really pretty fairly competitive pricing wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and feature for feature, both very comparable as well.
Yeah. But the upside for VFO is they now own all the patents that Windows filed.
Mm-hmm.
So any of the core technologies that they developed that JAWS might not have been able to use in the past, they'll be able to use going forward. So we'll see how that impacts the product in the next releases, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. So do you see this as a positive or a negative thing? I mean, I don't know. For me, it's always a negative whenever you're removing competition. But then again, I mean, they removed the competition when they merged. So
well, not entirely. There is other competition out there. We were talking earlier, Ryan. We've got Dolphin. We've got
System Access,
NVDA, which is free.
You got Narrator, which Microsoft is really pushing.
Right. So, and of course the built-in Apple accessibility, which has
some people love.
Yeah, has no competition. So, I don't know. There still will be competition in the marketplace for sure. And a good chunk of it might be coming from NVDA. That's the one I hear people talking about now. It's not
all the time.
They're not talking about any of the commercial products. They're talking about NVDA.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's free and it's pretty darn good.
For what most people use, Word, internet, email, it's the cat's meow.
Yeah.
Meow.
well, time will tell, I guess. We'll see how this goes. I mean, now there was some sort of a deal that Microsoft had with Windows as well, where they were offering it free, correct?
Yeah, it was the Windows for Office program. So I believe if you had Office 2010 or Office 2013, you could actually apply to get the free version of Windows. And I think Microsoft needed your Windows serial number, or the other way around. I think GW Micro needed your Office serial number in order to get all that tied together. But I think that program's going away now as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And, that it's probably not a coincidence that those two things, their contract with Microsoft and this announcement, are tied together, I think.
Yeah, what was the date? Was it January 2017 they were going to stop?
No, I think it was June. It should be in the printout.
Yeah, that's part of the printout that didn't print out so good.
Yeah, because January 7th, 2017, it's already passed.
Yeah.
So I think it's this summer.
Yeah, so they posted some Q&A stuff on their website. Maybe we should go through that.
Sure.
First question was, I purchased Windows technical support. What happens now? And they're saying Windows technical support will continue to be offered by VFO. Then they said, I was using the free version of Windows for users of Microsoft Office and cannot afford to buy JAWS. Where am I supposed to go? VFO is committed to working with individual customers and has various options that make migrating to JAWS affordable. Please contact VFO for assistance at 1-800-444-4443.
Sounds a bit vague.
Well, it depends on what version they're at, and I guess if it's
they're using the free version, they're using the free version, right?
But I think they have some. I think they might have some subsidies available. I'm not sure. Then there's, I purchased a copy of Windows and now it is discontinued. Will I get a refund? Customers who purchase Windows will have their investment recognized. VFO has various conversion and upgrade programs in place to preserve this investment as the customer migrates to other products within VFO. So no refund. This is my favorite question. I have been a user of Windows for years and cannot learn a new screen reader. How will I survive? Well, dear listener, as long as you keep drinking water and eating food, you will survive.
Gloria Gaynor song.
I would also recommend a little bit of exercise. Their answer, however, although it's always challenging to learn new technologies, many of the Windows keystrokes and features are similar to JAWS. VFO will provide transition and training materials for free on our website to aid customers migrating to JAWS.
Now, so let me stop you there and let me ask Ryan, because you've used both programs, obviously. Is that true? Are they very similar? What would the learning curve of learning of a Windows user picking up JAWS be like?
Read the manual.
RTFM, people. Yeah. RTFM.
I started out with JAWS when I first lost my sight, and only in the last probably 5 years did I start playing with Windows. And there are keyboard commands that aren't the same. I could do insert F11 with JAWS to bring up the system tray, yet in Windows it's insert S. So totally different commands. And there is going to be a learning curve. So you will want to take a look through the manual or quick reference or listen to some of these tutorials that VFO has put out to get up to speed with the change. So
what's your take on it then? Like, so if somebody who's an experienced Windows user...
They're going to hate this.
Well, obviously. But I mean, like... Really, is it just a matter of they're going to need to learn new keyboard commands? Like the functionality of the two programs are very similar?
Yeah, they're either going to take the time and learn the new commands, or they're just going to jump ship and go to NVDA.
Yeah,
I think there's going to be some market shift there where people aren't going to keep buying their screen reader unless they need it in a work situation.
Well, yeah, and I mean, certainly, when you're buying SMAs and stuff, it might make more sense to just, if you're going to have to learn a new program anyways, just bail on the whole thing and learn MDVA.
Yeah, wasn't there a fairly significant difference between the scripting languages behind them as well? Like JAWS had its own scripting language, and didn't Windows use
set files?
Set files?
Yeah, which I think were Visual Basic.
Yeah,
but they were called set files. And reading a few tweets that Brian Hartgen put out, he was saying that, I think in our previous podcast with him, that the JAWS scripting language was a lot more flexible and functional than set files were for Windows. He was able to do more with the JAWS scripting than he could with Windows set files.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, another Windows user, Jeff Bishop, who creates a lot of Windows set files as well, was saying, I guess the time is now that's not going to happen anymore. He's not developing anymore. So, everybody who's using these set files at some point in time, I think in the documentation there, it says they're just going to stop working. I think Freedom Scientific has said they're going to continue to support it up until a certain date. But the next creators update comes out around September now. And so is WindowEyes actually going to be secure to run on that OS? Don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's the big unknown right now. So last question that they posted here is, what is the difference between JAWS 18 Home and JAWS 18 Pro? And they say there is no difference in functionality between JAWS 18 Home and
Don't get
JAWS
me
18
started
Pro.
on that.
The Home version is restricted to non-commercial use and is not authorized for use in work or commercial environments. Additionally, the SMA price for JAWS Home is $120 versus the professional SMA, which is $200. And those, of course, would be US dollar prices.
Ludicrous.
Really? Well, I don't know. What's your take on that?
I totally disagree with the whole JAWS Home and JAWS Pro. WindowEyes, there was one version. You had WindowEyes Professional that worked on everything. JAWS Home now works on everything. JAWS Pro also works on everything. The only difference is if I tell Freedom Scientific I'm using my JAWS at work, they're going to tell me I need to buy JAWS Pro.
That seems a little bit silly.
It is silly.
Well, I think that's a holdover from way back in the early days of JAWS, because back in the early days of JAWS, they licensed some code, I believe. This is a vague recollection, and don't hold me to this, but I seem to recall that they had a licensing agreement with somebody for some of the base code of JAWS that allowed it to work on Windows NT. That's going back. And they basically signed a deal that said that they would have JAWS Home and JAWS Pro, and they would pay a licensing fee to the people for JAWS Pro in perpetuity. So I think that's probably
why there's still two flavors.
Why there's still two flavors, because you're right, it doesn't need to be, but I think that's probably a holdover of a licensing agreement.
Right.
Interesting.
Well, if somebody knows for sure, let us know.
Sure. Yeah, you get on the stick and get us talking to somebody from VFO.
I'm on the stick.
Somebody call Glenn Gordon. We need Glenn Gordon.
That's right.
That's right. Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah.
No, sorry, wrong Gordon.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. It'll be something to keep an eye out.
Yeah, I think I might just join a couple message boards and just watch the conversation flow.
Yeah.
I imagine they're pretty active today.
Yeah, and certainly if anyone has any thoughts at all, give us a shout. atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
Oh, I got it right.
Wow, you got it right.
Thank you. It's been a year, so I figured I better learn it. I spent the whole weekend just doing nothing but standing in front of a mirror practicing it. We've talked about that for a while, so we better bring our special guest on.
Yeah, pitter patter. Let's get at her.
Hello.
Hi, Victor. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks so much for joining us today.
No worries.
I've got a couple other colleagues here with me, so we're going to gang up on you.
Okay.
I've got Rob Minot,
Hello.
Hey, guys.
and I've got Steve Barclay.
Hey, Victor, how's it going?
Hi, guys.
Well, hey, so thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Well, actually, I'll say it afterwards.
That's right, because you don't know.
Yeah, because I don't know yet.
That's
It
right.
could not be a pleasure at all. It could have been just a giant pain in the ass, but
Yeah, we're just here to rake you over the coals.
that's right.
Okay.
Well, so you know what? Let's start things out. Let's start out with a softball and just tell us a little bit about what Google Accessibility is and what the mandate is.
So I think, Google Accessibility is a pretty broad, definition that encompasses probably our activities in the accessibility field in general. So, just like many other companies, we have our accessibility effort that includes, teams who work on accessibility. It includes events that we attend. It includes things that we do on the web. It just includes anything that Google does to promote accessibility worldwide and inside enterprises as well as for just our users.
And that's across all the Google platforms and all the Google apps, correct?
Yeah, that's the intent, right? So that anything that Google puts out there, has accessibility thinking behind this, or will have at some point, or work in progress, whatever it may be.
And tell us, Victor, what exactly is your position at Google Accessibility?
So I work on a team called Android Accessibility Services. Specifically, I'm focusing on TalkBack Screen Reader, but our team works on other products such as Select to Speak for people who have physical disabilities. Switch Access for people who have physical disabilities, as well as Select to Speak, which is the new service we launched for people who have print disabilities. But TalkBack tends to be what gets most attention, because TalkBack users are so loud and clear. So that's my role on the team is I'm a person who is responsible for sort of creating the vision for the product and then helping out technically whatever necessary as far as the accessibility is concerned.
And how long have you been doing that?
I joined Google about 2 years ago. I started out with Google Plus and some other social initiatives such as Photos, worked a little bit with Hangouts team, and then I moved to Android, I would say about a year and a half ago. Time flies, so I don't keep track of it. something like that.
And for those people who may not be aware of it, tell us a little bit about what exactly TalkBack is.
So TalkBack is a screen reading utility for people who are blind. Allows those users to interact with their mobile devices through gestures as well as external keyboards. So it's in that sense, it's no different from other screen reader, except that we specifically focus on Android platform and on different formats. For example, whether you're using a tablet or a phone, or just use a phone via the Bluetooth keyboard. So TalkBack is responsible for handling input and output for the user. It's a little geeky, what I just said, but essentially it's a screen reader.
Oh, that's okay. You're on the right podcast for geeks. So we're huge geeks here too.
I'm totally blind myself.
And also, as of recent, TalkBack also runs on some of the Android watches from LG, such as Sports, and then some other manufacturers is picking up TalkBack. So that's a new form factor that we started supporting recently.
Oh, that's cool.
Sorry, Ryan, what were you saying?
Well, I was just going to say that, I'm blind myself and use TalkBack on my Android phone every day. So, I really appreciate the efforts that go into developing a product like that. Can you talk about maybe the development cycle of TalkBack? Like, is there a major version every quarter?
Yeah, so in general, our cycle is about 8 to 9 weeks. Things sometimes slip depending on, let's say, our team is also involved in other projects that have to do with Android platform in general, and so sometimes we slip the schedule depending on if there are other needs we need to cover. But in general, I would say 3 months is a fair timeline that I could put forth. So every 3-4 months we tend to release a new version of TalkBack. It is tied to Android releases, but not as strongly, for example, as other platforms such as iOS, where VoiceOver comes out only with iOS updates, right? The major versions happen. So we do try to put major features in Android versions. So for example, if there's a new version coming out, we try to align it with TalkBack and put in some new features that have to do specifically with that release of Android. So for example, in every release of Android will include some new APIs or some new features that open up new possibilities for screen readers. So that's when TalkBack would have its major update to incorporate those new APIs. But aside from that, we're not really tied to Android in any way. We can release anytime we want. It's what's known as unbundled release, which means we can push updates of TalkBack through Play Store.
Right.
And so in that respect, our schedule is fluid, but on average, we try to keep it to 3-4 months schedule.
And do you find you get a lot of feedback from the community at all?
Yeah, so we our two major channels of feedback are through two Google groups, i3, which is a group that's overseen by Google. We don't actually run the group, but we just oversee to make sure that things don't get out of hand, like with spam. And But other than that, we keep the group pretty free. We don't try to restrict people on the topics they can talk about. We try to make sure it's Android related, but other than that. And then the other group is called VI Android, VI-Android, as in visually impaired Android users. The other major channel is obviously conferences and conventions and things like that, or any training we happen to do, or partnerships with AFB or NFB. So those are probably our two major sources of feedback. Other than that, users can submit feedback through standard means. If you go to TalkBack settings menu at the bottom of the screen, there's a link that says help and feedback, so you can just submit feedback. And so we get lots of users writing to us in that way.
And is Google I/O this week? And are you there?
Yep, Google I/O is starting up on Wednesday. And yes, this is the time you will hear about what's new in Android and TalkBack.
Excellent.
So, can you give us a sneak preview?
Probably no, because it's better to hear it from the stage. It's much more pompous.
Yeah, we don't have flashpots here or bikini-clad girls or anything with. So
do you know if Google I/O is streaming? Like, can people watch it online?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first day, I believe, is going to be all mainstreamed. All streamed live, I meant to say.
Right.
So it's going to be streamed live. I believe there are YouTube links, but also if you download the Google I/O 2017 app, they will be providing links to streaming videos.
Okay.
So it can be watched that way. But also it will be archived for later. So I'm sure there'll be lots of opportunities to follow what's going on with I/O and after that.
Cool.
Yeah. If you were at CSUN last year, actually, you could have, you may have been lucky to get some of the sneak peek previews at what's coming up, but I think we didn't really explain too many things. It was sort of like, hey, come in here, and if you understand what we're talking about, then please ask questions.
Yeah, no, we weren't
Not
there,
exactly that way, but we sort of gave people an idea of what exactly we're working on for O. But we're going to be fully explaining that on Wednesday.
Right.
And how important is community feedback to you guys?
I mean, I would say, well, first of all, I'm myself a screen reader user, so it matters to me personally, but for Google it does matter a lot. Because, when you're a big corporation, oftentimes you do have to make certain decisions because, we take user feedback, but at the end of the day, we have to take everything that users say, and oftentimes how it goes with users, right? A lot of 50% users say we like this feature, and other 50% will absolutely hate it. And we're the ones who have to make a final call and say, well, we think, these 50% of users is more correct than the other 50 or whatever. I'm sort of stretching it a little bit, but you see where I'm going with this. And so user feedback is critically important. I would say with accessibility, I keep stressing this everywhere I publicly speak or on Twitter, we don't get enough of it. I do feel that users of accessibility tools should be speaking out more. And yes, sometimes it's not a very pleasant feedback, but I take that than no feedback at all, because it makes it easier for us to see whether people like what we're doing. And of course, it's very nice to get positive feedback, not just negative feedback. But I would say, again, user feedback is super critical because I just think people with disabilities don't get heard enough.
Right.
And so I think this is today we're in such an amazing world where there is way, and I've seen that Twitter storms and all kinds of Twitter campaigns have done a lot of good for us. Developers do listen if enough people speak up.
Right.
So it's critically important.
Well, certainly, and I mean, it also, it shows the company itself that there's a demand. There's a big audience for this.
And you're making a good point there too, which is it sort of gets into this whole business sense, right? The first question people always ask, well, how many screen reader users are out there? And I was like, well, according to the census, blah, blah, blah. And then you get into this sort of plain speak
Right.
Numbers are numbers, right? But at the end of the day, if I can pull up 10 tweets or 25 tweets and they say, well, this feature really works well, but it could work better, it always speaks much louder than any numbers from U.S. Census Bureau. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Do you have any involvement with Brailleback?
Yeah, so that's one thing I forgot to mention. Sorry. Brailleback also is on our team. And this is probably one of the products that hasn't received much love within the last year. And the one thing I can say here is that we are keenly aware of the fact, and I think this is going to be one of our big priorities for the next year. The reasons are pretty simple. We basically have to do a lot of refactoring within Brailleback itself to do all of the things that people are asking for, like integration of Brailleback into TalkBack and make Brailleback work better across devices and so on and so forth. So it is definitely on the list of things, and it's going to be one of the big priorities for us going forward. Again, I'm a Braille user, so it matters to me personally.
Right. We had a conversation with Jonathan Mosen on the podcast a while ago, and
Yeah.
one of my big predictions that I've been calling for years, and which has completely failed to come, was I've always predicted that people would switch away from mainstream Braille note takers and start moving to accessible devices, just pairing them with Braille displays.
Yep.
And I asked Jonathan, why he thought that hasn't happened, and he said the main reason it hasn't happened is because the Braille support has just not been robust enough on any of the platforms.
And this is a good point you're making. So I myself use very ultra Braille note taker, and honestly speaking, I could totally live without it. But it's the convenience of pressing the button and having Braille pop up on your display, and you not having to do anything else. It's why people buy certain phones versus other phones, because it's how much time does it take for you to get to start doing what you need to be doing, right? And I think right now, I would say on all major platforms, we haven't gotten Braille to the point where it feels that way. It's always finicky. You turn on Braille display, the Bluetooth doesn't engage, you turn it off again, it still doesn't work. You press the power button, oops, now it started working. Okay, let's get to doing something, right? And it's great, but at the same time, it's not, from the point of view of average user, this is not where we want to be if we want Braille to be, used, with off-shelf devices such as mobile phones.
Yeah, and there's some pretty big work that has to go into it if you're going to support things like
that's
Braille
math.
input and output.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think one thing that has happened, I've been watching over the last 2 seasons, is that we see that some Braille note taker manufacturers actually start installing Lollipop, for example, or Marshmallow Android as their platform for to run Braille. And I think that's an interesting shift. It's an intermediate shift, meaning that they're going to be running the mainstream platform, but they will be powering it with their own Braille applications. For example, if you take a Keynote suite, right? I mean,
right.
Keysoft. Yeah. These guys have done a lot of work, and honestly speaking, for Brailleback or for any other, I'm just going to use Brailleback because I can. I don't want to speak for other platforms, but to get to the same level of accessibility and ease of use, that's going to take an entire team of engineers, right? Because these guys they've compiled so much experience, if they have so much code they've written to make things easier for the Braille user, that again, to build this into the mainstream product, it's no small feat. It cannot be done, but as you can imagine, with a multitude of other priorities, this isn't going to be easy, and competing with a company that spent their years and years building.
They've got a 25-year head start on you.
It's not going to be easy, exactly.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we'll give you a pass on that one.
Yeah, no, but I'm really happy to see that there are actually, like this Korean company, I forgot their name right now.
HIMS.
But this time sorry?
HIMS? HIMS?
Maybe HIMS. But there was another one that I've seen their cool Braille display with Alexa assistant built in. I think there was a button. They did some little hackery to, but they were able to do that because they run on Android. And so we see a lot more Braille note-taker manufacturers switching to that because they're able to get access to mainstream features people expect from their mobile phones. Now, good luck building that into a self-closed Braille note-taker like Very Ultra. This is never going to happen.
Right.
So I think there's a light somewhere there flickering.
Well, and it's going to be huge too, because it's going to mean a lot to the end user to be able to do everything that they need to do on one device and one platform.
Exactly.
Well, and also for education, where I see Braille note takers being sold primarily is in education, and teachers are not going to switch off of platforms like that until they know that they have things like robust math support.
Right.
You have to be able to do both UEB and Nemeth math Braille on that device before they're going to make the move. There's a lot more to it than just
Sure.
word processing and email and web browsing.
Yeah, and you're so right. And I think we haven't even gotten it solved in Braille per se. I mean, you look at UEB and things that, we have, great things that happen there, but, clearly, even UEB needs a bit of work to be friendly with languages and all kinds of notations. And so now you take this and you put it on the mainstream platform, now suddenly you have to, make sure it integrates with the rest of the things, right? Smileys, emojis, you name it, things that people will want to do with their Braille note takers, right?
Right, yeah, absolutely. Do you guys get involved at all in the committees that are involved in setting standards for things like UEB?
No, I'm not aware. I haven't been, and I doubt that Google has been involved in any way that.
Yeah, I'm not. I think it's primarily educators who get into that, but I'm not aware of any manufacturer that's involved at that level. It would be interesting to see.
Would be great, though.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it would be.
I just can't wait to see the Braille chart for the emojis. I want to know what the Braille code is for the poop emoji.
Well, and yeah, exactly. And so with millions of Unicode characters that are available, you've seen the number of emojis you now have on keyboards. There's like hundreds and hundreds. I think we'd have to, invent a new Braille. I don't even know what it is.
18,000 dot Braille.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So can you talk about Chromevox, what it is, and if there are plans to... I know a lot of Chromebooks now, some of the newer ones, you can actually run Android apps on your Chromebooks. Is there plans or...
Are we seeing
to merge them?
Yeah, are we seeing a convergence of these two platforms?
Yeah, so for people who may not know, Chromevox is a screen reader that has been written entirely for Chrome OS and on Chrome OS. There was an extension, there still is an extension in Chrome Store, which you can also download if you run Chrome browser, but it's largely going to stay just on kind of maintenance mode, and I don't think it will get any new updates. Most of the efforts go into Chrome OS, and so it is a screen reader and has all the functionality you would expect from a standard screen reader, web browsing, some Braille support, navigation through the desktop and toolbars and all this good stuff. It has control. You can control how it speaks and what it speaks. And so the other thing you just referred to, about 2 years ago, maybe even earlier than that. No, maybe not earlier than that, but let's just say within the last 2 years, there has been an effort to put Android, to allow Android Play Store apps run on top of Chrome. So this is already in the beta channel, so it's not a big secret. So the way things work right now is that TalkBack works really well. So when Chrome OS detects that you switch to a window that runs Android app, for example, let's just say Skype for Android or something like that, TalkBack will automatically kick in, and now you will be using TalkBack instead of Chromevox. We are looking into potentially, if not merging them, making to work these two products together. closer. In fact, some things have been done under the hood to make sure like smooth transition between windows. So Chromevox shuts up when TalkBack speaks, and so on and so forth. There are experimentations going on to see how close we can get those products together, but there's nothing that we can announce at this point. The convergence will probably continue. I don't think it'll get to the point where you could, that Chrome OS will swallow Android. But as of right now, the idea is to allow Android apps to run on Chrome OS, so that if people want to use a feature or a specific functionality that's not available on Chrome OS, they can always download an Android app and just use it side by side with other Chrome OS apps. So it's actually very cool. I mean, if you haven't tried it, it's actually kind of cool experience, almost seamless actually. So now that Chromevox also support touch exploration, so if your laptop Chromebook supports touch screen, then you can actually use both TalkBack and Chromevox with touch exploration. So that's kind of cool.
Very.
Yeah.
Will there be a new Pixel at I/O?
You mean new phones?
No, new Chromebook?
We'll find out.
Ryan, stop trying to press him for information.
Good try.
Yeah, it really is.
You almost got him right. Almost got him.
Yeah, almost got it.
Gotta try.
Yeah.
So, as a user, what do you use alongside your Android devices? Like, what sort of apps do you use on a regular basis that you think your average user would be interested in?
So, as a background, I was actually an avid iOS user before I joined Google. And when I switched to Android, I primarily switched because, if I'm working on a product, I'd better struggle the same struggle as the rest of the users. That's always been my motto. I can't cheat. I do have an iPad at home, which I primarily still use for my music apps because I bought so many music libraries and things like that, but irrelevant to this conversation. But when I switched to Android, I started actually realizing most of the things you need to do on Android or you were able to do on iOS, there's pretty much an app to do the same thing on Android. Right. So I use Skype, I use Facebook, I use Facebook Messenger, I use LinkedIn, I use Twitter, I use, let's see what else is there. I use Flipboard. I use obviously a bunch of Google Play apps, Google Play Music, Play Books. Right. I use Hangouts, obviously. All the stuff, Wells Fargo for banking, E-Trade. Honestly, pretty much anything I ever needed to use on iOS, I could find the same app. And some of them actually work even better on Android than they do on iOS.
Sure.
Right.
So it's actually interesting to see that many users probably not aware because, for so many years, Android kind of has this negative, people always sort of Android as being as negative, sometimes for the right reasons, sometimes not, but that's what it was. And I think within the last year, we've significantly, boosted, that's at least my feeling based on user feedback, that reactions are much, 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 much more positive. And we have people coming to us free saying like, hey, I'm finally ready to switch to Android, things like that, and then people suddenly realize, the difference between two platforms isn't all that great,
Right.
We sometimes find issues with hardware because if you buy some cheap, Chinese device that is not as responsive, or they've put some custom software and that suddenly standard Android features don't work anymore. But that's kind of outside of Google's hands.
Right.
We can't always control that sort of experience. But as far as pure Android experience, I would say it's gotten pretty close to other platforms.
And how far back does Android support go? Being that Android is so fragmented, there's still phones out there running Gingerbread, and
yeah,
it's got to be a real challenge for you guys.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in TalkBack 5.04, which came out, I think it was last last May, I think, something like that. Last May. It's already May. Sorry about that. Okay, anyway, like about a year ago, maybe slightly later, like July of last year, we had to make a conscious decision to finally cut support for Jelly Bean and Kit Kat. And part of the reasons was that, well, first of all, it's a nightmare to try maintaining, such old phones. But also we were spending so much time on trying to maintain these other platforms that we couldn't spend more time on actually delivering the value for users of newer phones. So right now we are supporting all the way back to Lollipop, which is Android 5.1. And I think we plan to keep it that way at least, for some time, because we have all the necessary APIs to keep the experience pretty good. When we feel like this is no longer the case, we'll probably start cutting support for those older devices. But certainly we are aware of the fact that since the majority of users of Android are from outside of the United States, buying a $700 phone isn't an option for many of our users, and so we're keenly aware of that. And so we try to keep TalkBack as backward compatible as we can. I think, that's probably as much. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you guys currently working on a beta for Android O?
Yes, so there will be, the Android O that will be, the features we'll be talking about on Wednesday will also include a new beta of TalkBack. So those people who will be subscribing to the public beta of Android O, they will be getting an entirely new TalkBack experience. Yeah, so, tune in for the stream, and you'll be able to hear about it, and I'll be actually demoing features. So
excellent. And so is there a TalkBack beta program people can enter into?
Yeah, there is a beta program. The link is something that I can't remember right now, but if you guys have some kind of show notes where you want to post a link, I would be happy to send it to you later.
Yeah, we absolutely do. So
yeah, so there's a beta program. Anybody can sign in, and it's a public beta. You have to be a member of the ice-free list to join the beta. We may revise these rules in the future. We realize it's not convenient for all the people who want to be part of the beta, but that's the way it has been set up for some time now, and so we don't want to break that flow just yet. So you can always subscribe to ice-free, and then if you feel like it's too heavy, you can put yourself on like silent mode.
Right.
But you have to be signed up with the same address that you signed up with the ice-free group.
Is there anything you want to share with us, Victor, that you think listeners would like to know more about?
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest, like I said before, feedback is really important. I don't know how many of your listeners are users of Android and TalkBack in particular. I would encourage people to give. If you tried TalkBack, we often hear people, I tried Android 5 years ago and I didn't like it. Well, 5 years is up, so it could be an opportunity to give it another shot, at least to have an alternative, because I think oftentimes people, for understandable reasons, we keep using what we're used to, and I would like to encourage people to give Android another shot, or if you just want to be exposed to some new things that are going on, please do, and send your feedback. Subscribe to the ice-free list. It can be heavy at times, like I said, but it's probably, the easiest way to get an idea of what's going on with Android, and also you'll get a good helping hand from other users who are, avid Android users, and they know the platform in and out, so you wouldn't be left alone. There's another I would like to sort of put in the plug for user-driven community called inclusiveandroid.com. It's a portal where you can learn about different apps that are accessible on Android. Users rate them. There's a bunch of audio tutorials on this website. So it's probably the largest user community website out there that deals with Android. So I would definitely encourage people to check that out. So it's inclusiveandroid.com.
Perfect.
Great.
All right, Mr. Victor Tsaran, thank you so much for joining us today and talking.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for having me chat with you. It was now I can say it was a pleasure. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
The pressure's off, guys.
Thank you.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Thanks, Victor.
Thanks,
Bye.
Victor.
Bye.
That was cool. It was nice to talk to somebody from Google finally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indeed. It's nice, he's nice to hear that he's a Braille user, because it would be really cool to see robust Braille support in Android.
Well, if they say if that's the one thing that's holding back people, just ditching note takers altogether, that could be the next big leap forward. And it makes sense. It makes sense that everything you should be able to do everything from one device on one platform. Period.
Yeah, and it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg to do it either.
Well, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
What is it? $1,500 for? Well, no, actually, it's more than that. I mean, how much does an average note taker cost? Like $3,000?
$4,000.
$5, $6,000.
See, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you have to buy that. Plus, you already have a phone. That's another $800, and it's ridiculous.
I thought it was a lot of information.
Yeah, no, it was a nice connection to make, and it'll be a good one to loop back to down the road.
I think so.
We'll keep track of what's going on. Ryan's going to keep on getting the updates, and it sounds like he wants to get onto that beta list.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to get info from Ryan and then loop back to Victor and see how his pathway's going.
Mm-hmm.
See, we really should have let Victor know that this isn't going to air until Friday, and the conference isn't. I think starts Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all going to be old news by the time this airs, anyways.
But he does know that for sure.
That's true, because if he did break something, we
That's right.
would go right out.
Yeah.
I'd edit this today and get it out. Breaking.
Breaking
No, I'm
news.
just kidding, Victor. We
Sorry.
would never throw you under the bus like that. But no, that should be interesting. It should be.
Which you'll find out when this airs on Friday.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to find the Google I/O streams and sit down here on Wednesday and just listen to it all.
Yeah,
Find out
for
what's
sure.
Going on.
Yeah. I don't know. What's your take on it? Have you heard any rumors of what do you figure they're going to announce?
I haven't heard a thing. It's
Really?
been pretty quiet. I listened to This Week in Google, which is another podcast, and there's really no speculation as to what's coming. A lot of people are waiting for a new Pixel C Chromebook, to compete with Samsung's, because Samsung has one now that runs Chrome, but you can also install Android apps.
Right.
So yeah, there hasn't been a lot of news at all from what I've seen or heard.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Android O is the big new thing that's hit beta.
Who knows what we will be talking about next week?
Indeedy.
I do.
Well, yeah. Well, whatever.
Actually, no, I don't. Actually, no,
No,
yes, I do.
actually, you don't.
You kind of do. Some of it.
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways,
Secret.
so now,
AT Banter non-committal time.
yes. All we'll say is there will be a show,
Yes, there will.
and we'll be here.
Yes, we will.
That's it.
And there'll be beer.
Will there?
Sure.
Oh, really? You don't even. Okay. Well,
I'm in.
good.
All right.
Well, I'm going to hold you to that, Ryan.
All right.
Hey, we have a couple other things to talk about real quickly before we go.
We have some people to thank before we go to.
Yeah, we do. First up, let's throw a shout out to Dr. Leo Bissonnette, all the way from Montreal,
Yeah.
who dropped us an email and is a listener. And he had a question about HD radio and what the implications of HD radio could hold for accessibility, which would make for an interesting topic, I think.
Yeah. Well, I can answer that. Screwed if I know, Leo. Thanks for writing.
Yeah, I have to admit, I don't really know a heck of a lot about HD radio. Ryan, you're kind of the
I don't know a lot
audiophile.
about HD radio. There's a lot of radio stations that are using HD radio, which I guess is a higher frequency than FM and AM, of course. I guess it's probably the fidelity is probably better, and there are standalone HD radio players that you can get. But I need to dig into it some more and maybe see if we can find a guest to actually come on and talk about it.
It's a great show idea. Thanks, Leo, for it. And yeah, we'll look into that. Secondly, I want to say thank you very much to Michael Babcock, who reached out to us on Twitter, shared a link with us to the Microsoft accessibility site. Because I guess, I don't know, I forget what episode it was. I think it was 49. We were kind of complaining about Microsoft and their documentation.
Right.
And, you know, there is documentation out there. It is true. And, you know, I had a look through it. It's actually pretty good. We did link to it in the Microsoft accessibility show that we did with Megan.
Oh, good.
But we'll link to it again just in case. It's got some good stuff. My only complaint with it is that the documentation is in Word format, which I don't know. Microsoft, come on, PDF it. Because what if you don't have Office?
Well, you could open it in Google Docs.
Can you open up a docx
Yep.
in Google Docs?
Yep.
All right, well, but still, come on, Microsoft, PDF it. Anyways, minor complaint. But yeah, no, thanks Michael, for letting us know and sharing that. And he's apparently going back and listening to all our older episodes.
Oh, don't do it, Mike.
Oh, he's on episode 5. Episode
Tremendous
5 was
waste of
pretty
time.
early
Last
on.
we heard, he was on 5. Yeah.
Some of those early episodes I've gone back and listened to for the, you know, to get ready for our anniversary show. And yeah, we had some tech issues back then.
Did we?
Yeah, there's some tech issues. There's some
Burps and gurgles.
on our part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we better now? Tech
We're
wise?
slightly. Well, we're better tech wise. And we're a little better. I think we come off a little smoother maybe.
Well, people say they enjoy the show, so they keep listening. So we're doing something right.
Yeah. And our numbers
Or
are
wrong.
growing. We're over 1,200 for our last
Last week.
show.
Last week, yep. Yeah. So
That's
you know,
pretty cool.
to anybody who's out there, who's listening, who's sharing the podcast, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's been a long, strange road this past year, but
Yeah, and now knowing that there's that many people out there, I get nervous in front of big crowds. So I'm picturing you all in your underwear.
me too. Anyways,
My.
AT Banter creepy moment.
That's another show.
Indeed.
Yeah.
That goes with the after hours show.
We can have a lot of spin-off shows. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, there were some other thank yous.
There were?
Yes. We want to thank Steve Kelly for adding us to the Low Vision Assistive Tech podcast page.
Yes, he asked for our RSS feed
that's
on
right.
Twitter, and Rob sent him that this morning. So
Right.
Yeah.
we are
Forgot
now
about
on
that.
his assistive technology blog and podcast page.
Thanks, Steve. Hey, Ryan,
Rob,
where can people find us?
www.atbanter.com.
Well delivered, sir.
Thank you.
With authority.
Authority.
They can also email us at atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
Holy
Wow,
God, twice in one show.
I know.
That's amazing.
They say
Yeah.
lightning didn't strike twice.
You
And
can also find us on Twitter.
yes,
And Facebook.
and Instagram, sort of.
And how's the YouTube channel coming?
Shut up about the YouTube channel. I edited that out last week, and
Oh,
I have
did
to
you?
edit that. Yes.
Oh, so we're just going to stop the YouTube channel?
No, I'm not stopping the YouTube channel. I'm gonna get to it, and we'll catch it up. It'll be fine. No, it's a pain. It's a pain.
Oh, it's so time consuming.
It is time consuming because you got to convert the video and anyways, blah blah blah. Anyways, but yeah, it's coming.
You know what we should do for the YouTube channel? We
What?
should do this podcast, but reenact it with sock puppets.
Now I'm thinking about that. Interesting. That's something that we didn't try with Uroga.
That's right.
AT with puppets.
Yeah, that's right. We never tried sock puppets.
Holy shit.
We could be
We
before
could
our
be onto
time.
something. We could be.
Or well after our time.
But we could say we have sock puppets on right now. People don't know.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Or we could be in our underwear.
We
That's
could be.
also true.
If you are, you're not welcome back. Get off my chair.
Okay, well then we are running. This is a really long show, so we had a lot of content. So I think we should cap it off.
All right.
So to sum up,
I'm Ryan Fleury.
No, you're going out of order. You have to wait for me.
Well, hurry up.
Well, listen, it was
You
a
wanna cap
dramatic.
it up.
It was a
There's
dramatic
pregnant pause in there.
Yeah,
Pregnant, all right.
Yeah.
Shut up, hand monkey. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. I have been Rob Minot.
And I've been Ryan Fleury.
And I still am Steve Barclay.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we will see you again next week for episode 52.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.